Please subscribe to my channel. Don't ask, don't get. Thomas is a Bawbag. 5 little words that got me 3 death threats, 2 attempts at cancellation, and a partridge in a pear tree. The stick was deserved because I didn't present my argument in the right way. This video is my attempt at rectifying that. So here's the biggest question to my international audience. What is a Bawbag? It is quite a vulgar term, so if you're not a fan of vulgarity, please skip this part of the video and live in denial. Okay, if you haven't skipped, this is what a Bawbag is. You know a man's testicles? You know the sack of skin that covers his balls? You know how that's kind of like a bag? Guys, we're not that sophisticated. It's essentially the Ron Seal of insults. The backlash from this particular comment was so severe that I did get 3 death threats on my YouTube channel. Didn't work though, still alive for now. And then I had to remove the video from my YouTube channel, otherwise it would have got shut down. Even though I did get death threats, it turns out there were people that actually agreed with me. Not specifically the word Bawbag, but the prominent Thomas YouTuber, Unlucky Tug. He's dropped several videos where he's called Thomas a prick. So why is Thomas a Bawbag? Let's start at the beginning. In his first Railway series book, Unlucky Tug did point out what everybody should have known about Thomas. He was a cocky prick. So much so that in his first story, Thomas and Gordon, because he decides to wind up Gordon leaves him attached to a high-speed train and essentially tries to kill him by exhaustion. In Thomas's train, he gets excited and impatient because he wants to pull Henry's train when he falls ill, and then leaves it behind as a result. And finally, in Thomas and the trucks push Thomas down Gordon's hill because of his carelessness, and in turn he gets reprimanded by the then Fat Director. At this point in the story, you do feel bad for Thomas, and you want him to have a chance to redeem himself. Fortunately, he gets this chance in Thomas and the Breakdown Train. When James's brake blocks catch fire, he crashes into a field, and Thomas brings the breakdown train, cleans up the mess, and saves the day. In turn, the Fat Director rewards his hard work with a branch line all to himself with 2 coaches. If the story stopped there, it would have been a brilliant way to round off a new character. Character arc complete, redemption achieved. But sure enough, the kids wanted more Thomas, so he wrote another book, the ever so aptly named Tank Engine Thomas Again. If you want to hear my thoughts on what I think of Tank Engine Thomas Again, please go and watch my Railway review episode of Tank Engine Thomas Again. We'll leave a link either up here or up here. This is where all the good work redeeming Thomas's character arc is essentially worth nothing. Now that Thomas has got his branch line, he doesn't just act like a Bawbag, he levels up his Bawbagging ability. One of the first lines in Tank Engine Thomas Again is that Thomas thinks his branch line is the most important part of the whole railway. There's nothing wrong with taking pride in your work, but if you use that as an excuse to make your colleagues' lives miserable, that pride turns into arrogance. In Thomas and the Guard, Henry is unwell, so instead of Thomas feeling sympathy for him, he tells him that he's too fat and needs exercise. 2 things with this. 1. How can a train be fat? 2. As I mentioned in his first book, Thomas was excited to get to pull Henry's train because Henry was unwell. And now the first story of Thomas and the Guard, Thomas is ridiculing him for being fat and unwell. This may seem small, but it's very key to showing that Thomas has completely forgotten his roots already. Time was he was the station pilot for these engines. Now he thinks he's above them. In Thomas, Terence in the Snow, he infamously calls Terence ugly because of his caterpillars. Then, sure enough, he starts to discriminate him for being different. Thomas also takes a strop because when the snow finally arrives and he has to wear his snowplough, he doesn't want to wear it. I know, that's typical of childlike behaviour. Trust me, we'll get there. Finally, in Thomas and Bertie, Thomas straight up acts like an asshole to Bertie because his pride and ego have taken a knock. So much so that he endangers the lives of not only his passengers, but Bertie's passengers as well, by challenging him to a race. We did, however, get a good frenemy relationship with Bertie by the end of it, but that brings me on to the next interesting point of the Railway series books. Thomas straight up doesn't have a lot of friends. He builds an alliance with Gordon, he's an acquaintance of Edward and Toby, and is frenemies with both Bertie and later Percy. Aside from those characters, how many other engines is he actually pleasant to? The rest of the engines he either sees as a threat to him or inferior to him. The Little Western engines have passing interaction with Thomas at best, and the narrow gauge and Arsdale engines have no interaction with him at all. We can't really count the Kilty Fell Railway because hardly anybody knows about them. And does he even bother with diesels such as Mavis, Boko, Daisy? But that might be a good thing when you think about it, because Thomas doesn't really have a lot of positive interactions with new engines on the railway. In twin engines, Thomas scolds Douglas because he can't find his special coach. Although they do get their own back in branch line engines when they have to pull him out of the station master's house, and they just laugh and leave his ass for dust. In Stepney the Bluebell engine, Thomas is furious when he has to be shunted from his own branch line to let Stepney pass with a VIP. And Thomas only warms up to Stepney because Stepney decides to softly brush his ego and talk about Thomas's branch line and how amazing it is. Geez, Stepney, what a bunker kisser. And he's just as rude to engines who are already established on the railway, with of course Percy usually being on the receiving end of it. In tramway engines, Thomas is more concerned about being late for his train than his best friend potentially dying after an accident. And then in Willie Bear, he insults Percy's appearance. Yes, I know, it's a meta reference between Wilbur Awdry and C. Reginald Dalby, and more about Thomas the Tank Engine. Really unique names for Thomas books once again. He has incidents with Percy and Thomas Percy and the Co, Bertie and James and Better Late Than Never, and Percy once again in the final story, Drip Tank. If you haven't read Drip Tank, I highly recommend that you do. And ironically, the reason it's so good is because it really emphasises what an ass Thomas is. Thomas does meet his match though in Thomas and the Twins, when he finally meets Bill and Ben, two tank engines that are more obnoxious than him. In Scrambled Eggs, the twins rip the piss out of him when he crashes into a lorry and gets covered in eggs. Yes, Thomas did get the last laughing down the drain, but it's still nice to see Thomas on the back wheel for a change. That's enough about the books for now, because now we move on to the TV series. In Series 1 to Series 5, Thomas really acts like he's always done in the Railway series books. He still never likes anyone new that comes to the railway. He doesn't think Trevor can be useful because he doesn't run on rails. And in the TV adaptation of Better Late Than Never, he straight up doesn't care if the viaduct collapses and all the passengers die, because at least he could run his train on time for one thing. Then in Series 6 his personality starts to turn. Thomas starts to become a bit nicer to everyone. In Harvey to the Rescue, Thomas is the only engine out of the established steam team that is nice to Harvey. Even Edward has a prejudice against Harvey. We'll get on to Edward in another video. And I know Thomas is rude to Elizabeth, the vintage Sentinel lorry, but she was rude to him first, so she started it. Then he starts to go back to type in Series 7, and in true Thomas Bawbag style, Thomas decides to drag other engines down with him. Thomas and Percy both think Henry is faking being ill, so they decide to leave the biggest train behind for him. Thomas and Percy both mimic Salty's accent and make fun of him. And of course, Thomas gets the hump over Emily taking Annie and Clarabelle. His influence so strong that other engines like Percy and Edward both ignore Emily for it. When you think about that, no wonder Emily was such a bitch during the hit era. On his own, he is still nice to engines like Fergus and Murdoch, but we do still see shades of the old jealous, spiteful Thomas. And none of those incidents are highlighted more than the episode Spotless Record. A new tank engine has arrived on Sodor called Arthur, who has got a spotless record, which means he has never done anything naughty or has gotten into trouble. Thomas deliberately gives Arthur bad advice with trucks, knowing that it will cause problems for him, and in his very first day, Thomas ruins Arthur's spotless record. Thomas does apologise to Arthur afterwards. But do you want to know what the moral of the story was? Some records are just meant to be broken. Weak excuse, mate. While Thomas in his truest form is a complete bawbag, later adaptations of him are actually worse. The Hit era, the Sharon Miller era, the Wubba, and All Engines Go tried to present Thomas as a watered down, overly nice engine. Thomas can still be cheeky and is more than capable of being an ass, but in these eras it's more down to the fact that he's childlike rather than being intentionally malicious, or generally just being stupid. See multiple 3 Strike episodes for more reference. There's nothing wrong with being childlike. As I've established, I have twin boys myself, but in lore, Thomas is one of the oldest engines on the railway. That's why the Railway series version of Thomas is a justifiable prick. He's too old for this shit. He's Danny Glover. It's also why the whole Gordon father figure thing in later iterations of the TV series really tick off a lot of fans, because Gordon is younger than Thomas. Yes, he's physically bigger, but bigger doesn't equate to older. Presenting any character as purely good or purely evil in media is not good, and especially when it comes to children's media. We all have shades of grey in our personalities, and hiding that presents a false view of the world for children. As much as Thomas can be a prick in the Railway series books, and especially in the classic era of the TV series, he's also kind, helpful, and really useful. This makes him a well-rounded character and creates a sense of relatability that is sorely missed in later iterations of this character. I may have said that Thomas is a bawbag, but it doesn't mean that I dislike his character. Actually, it's far from it. His positive and negative personality traits are the reason that children gravitate to him so strongly. It's also why decades later he is still relevant to children and adults alike. It's also why iterations such as Wubba and All Engines Go will not stand the test of time. All the characters in the Railway series books were fleshed out, given good character arcs, and made the audience genuinely care about them. Thomas may be a bawbag. He's arrogant, cheeky, bit of a prick, fussy, and has an ego that can rival James at times. If you think my opinion of Thomas is bad, wait till you hear my opinion of James. But it doesn't mean that I hate the character. Hate is a really strong word, and I would never use that on a character like Thomas. A good character makes you feel a range of emotions, both positive and negative. And Thomas has done that for decades. I gravitated to engines like Percy, Edward, Toby, and all of the Little Western engines as my favourite characters. But if it wasn't for Thomas, it wouldn't have sold me on the show in the first place. I hope this clears up any negativity that was perceived by the first time I called Thomas a bawbag, and that my rationale has helped justify it even a little bit to you. So until next time, keep on chugging!